Minute. 1, 2, 3. Okay, go for it.
Thank you guys. Welcome to Getting Employed, Getting Ready to Work. As I said, my background before being a pastor is I was in human resources for 17 years and I still do headhunting. So this is something that I have a lot of, is this all right? It's fine. Something that I've been involved in quite a lot, so I'm going to try and just share in the 30 minutes some pointers and tips for you, and we can include these notes as well so you don't have to take anything down. But the first thing I wanted to do is look at how do you prepare yourself and your CV to get employed. So I don't know, maybe just a quick show again, what types of field are you thinking of going into, or what types of jobs excite you? I think you're studying teaching, is that right? We've got an environmental management guy over here. Accounting.
Oh yeah, money man.
Going into social work.
Social work, brilliant.
No idea.
No idea, also brilliant. This will help you. Civil engineering, studying civil engineering.
Electrical engineering.
Also engineering, fantastic.
Medicinal law.
Okay, brilliant. So, you see the variety. But at the end of the day, it's the same process you can follow. But the first thing I want to say is you've got to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, if you would not employ yourself, what is the use of even putting yourself forward for getting ready for an interview or whatever? There's something of like a confidence. I want to jump around and forget the notes, but being cocky and arrogant is one thing, being confident is another. You're allowed to be confident, you're allowed to be assertive, but there's a fine line and you need to know where that is. Okay. I think when you're looking for work, say up front, God, guide me to the right place where my values will not be compromised. I think that's one of the important things, and I think some of the earlier speakers also spoke about that as well. Make sure there's a good match with where you're going. So I want to say right up front, don't decide to go into a career that your mom and dad think is a good idea for you. I'm sorry, moms and dads, I apologize, but it's the worst mistake you can make. Do the thing that makes you come alive. Do the thing that you'll get up every morning for 40 years if you have to, and do that with a smile on your face because you love it. That's so critical, guys. Don't pick the job that you think pays the most, that's the highest paying job, and say, I'm going to go down that career. If that is what your skill set is, and that's what God's entrusted you to, and He wants you to do that and to release funds for the kingdom, fantastic. But don't try and do something that you're not. The best gift you can give to an employer is to be yourself. To find a freedom in who you are and to come alive and to really just be yourself. And I'm jumping all over the notes, as I said, because we're cutting down. I've collected really well. I like it from this school. I have a prayer. I've worked with many people who've been in seasons of unemployment. Some who are, let's say, breadwinners, fathers, whatever, got families to support, and they go through seasons of unemployment, very, very difficult times. And then others starting out or wanting the better job or whatever. But my prayer for people is I say, Lord, won't you open a door to a particular employer or workplace that needs an Elvis, or that needs a Justin, or the other Justin. But really, I believe God is that involved in the detail of our life that He will pick you and handpick you for a particular place. And I say because that workplace actually needs you. So yes, you're going to pull a salary from them, but when we understand, and I'm not going to repeat what everybody else has said, that our work is working unto the Lord. So it's not like you're second rate because you're not in ministry now. God uses you where you are as teachers at times. And I've got to encourage some people who are at a school up the road that teaching is a calling, just as ministry is, as social work is. Those things are things of the heart that God has put in you, and you just own up to it and you say, yes, Lord, I'm going to do what you've asked me to do. So then I pray, as I said, I put a particular person's name and I pray that they would find a perfect match to the perfect workplace. Your CV needs to flow. Maybe some of you are young enough and you haven't had to put CVs here together. Start doing it early, get on things like LinkedIn early, get networking. It's been said before and it's true. You often get your jobs and your opportunities through who you know more than what you know. And I'm not saying it's not important to study, of course you must study. Your qualification is a door opener often to that thing. But there's so much more to it, and I'm going to unpack that just now. But your CV must flow, as I said, it must cover all of the things. You can go and find models. If you need templates, you can talk to me. But of course it covers your qualifications, it covers your experience, and don't think anything is not important. Any part-time work that you've done is worthwhile putting down in your CV at some point. But then you need to explain, and this is for guys who maybe been working for a while, don't let there be gaps or things that are not, because if the recruiter is sitting, and sometimes we get 1,000 CVs for a job just like that, yours is going to stand out somehow. And if there's anything that doesn't add up, we'll just push it aside because we don't have time to get hold of you and say, well, explain this to me. So your CV's going to speak to you when you don't have the opportunity to open the door. The other thing is, make sure your CV is 100% accurate, 100% truthful. This thing of integrity in the marketplace, particularly for us who call ourselves Christians, is 100%. It's so easy. Some people, they'll leave something in almost on purpose. They'll put something about a qualification, but they won't specify that it's incomplete. Maybe they're only 1 or 2 credits short, and for whatever reason they didn't finish it, but you need to state that on the CV, because otherwise it's assumed that you've got the qualification, and then somewhere down the line, maybe you're too shy to say that you don't have it, and you accept the job, and then they ask for the certificate and you don't have it, and boom, you'll lose the job. So the reality is, make sure that it's squeaky clean and 100% accurate in what you present. Then register for job alerts. And it was said, you're not going to easily get a job just by applying on the internet, because there's so many people. But you have to do that as well when you're in that space. And of course, then you network and you communicate with people as you go. So that's that. The other thing on your CV is a reference. So you need to have a person or two on your CV who believes in you, not a family member, preferably, but somebody who you've worked for, even if it's part-time work, or if it's a character reference, if it's somebody from the church, that's fine as well for starters. But once you've started working, people want to see working references. Somebody who can say, hey, this person's reported to me, this is their work ethic, and they can answer particular questions. Because many people falsify things. They give references on their buddies, who they pose as somebody else. Really, we've uncovered things like that before as well. We've had guys who falsify qualifications, and there are ways to verify all of those things. It's not in my notes, but criminal records, credit records, we have to do that for companies to determine whether people get jobs or not. So a simple rookie error of driving under the influence, for example, or whatever, can haunt you for 10 years or more in your career, and can speak and disqualify you to some degree. So be very, very careful of things like that. And I want to draw you a little diagram. So this is how. Now that you and your CV, you're sort of ready. Now you want to get ready, you get invited for an interview, and you start searching for a job or whatever. Now this is the typical person's expectations. And I don't want to say, because the word entitlement I don't like, but young people like you are entitled, but I've seen old people much older than me are entitled. African people are entitled, white people are entitled, everybody can be entitled. It's an attitude, but it's a stinky attitude. But this is often what people think. Oh, this is me. I've just qualified. Whether it's your matric or whether it's a degree or your trade or whatever, but I've qualified and I'm just going to cruise into my dream job. As soon as I qualify, I'm going to apply, and once I've applied, I'm going to get about 30 opportunities for interviews, and when I've had 30 opportunities for interviews, I'm going to get 5 offers, and then I'm going to bargain and I'm going to negotiate and I'm going to take the best offer. How's that for like a career path? Okay. Good luck to you. This is reality. This is reality. Somebody spoke about, what was it, stickability, or what was the word that they used? Maybe Adrian, about tenacity, I think. But this is often how it goes. You might qualify with your matric or your degree or whatever, your trade. Because this is what happens. I won't write all the word, but you apply for about 100 jobs online. You hear nothing. I want to say, I call it the big black hole. Like you put your CVs in a black hole, you hear nothing from anybody. The recruiters, the companies, nobody. It's like you never ever apply. You're thinking, like, is my internet connection still working? And did somebody receive these mails, whatever, or this portal? It is just black hole stuff. But then you carry on and you apply again, and then you get a bit demoralized. And then you maybe get an interview, but you get rejected, you don't get the job. Somebody else was better than you, you were second best. I hate that. Silver medal. And then you carry on applying again, and then you network and you talk to people and your folks and somebody who's got connections, and then next thing you get another interview, and eventually you get the job offer. But ain't over event, Afrikaans word, he who doesn't give up in the end. But often it's a journey. That's what I'm saying, the reality of this, and that's life in general. Things don't always go a straight line, perfect plan. Okay? But don't get discouraged. But God, I love that phrase. But God can. My oldest daughter asked Melissa, she broke this rule, got a degree, had an interview, got an offer just after. That's God's favor, and He can do that. But I'm saying, don't set yourself up for disappointment or whatever if it doesn't happen like that. And of course, He can open doors. Okay. So now you're at the interview. Let's talk about the interview. How do you get yourself ready for the interview? Firstly, be on time. There is no African time in the corporate world. I'm sorry to say. No African time, no whatever, no excuses. Get there on time. In fact, get there early. Because often you've got to sign in at security and you've got to do whatever and get through reception and whatever before you get to the interview. Don't be late. Terrible first impression. I'm telling you now, 99% of the time you won't get that job. The second one is dress appropriately for the interview. Now what I'm saying is that there can be two sides to this. If you are an artisan, and this country needs more artisans, let me tell you that. Not everybody has to get a degree to be an engineer. We need artisans, we need millwrights, we need electricians, we need fitters, and they earn good money, let me tell you that. And they're in big demand, and there's a shortage of skills. So whatever it is God tells you to do, whatever. So, but if you pitch up at an interview for an electrician role, and you're in a suit and tie, probably not appropriate. Because you're not going to dress like that when you work as an electrician. Dress appropriately to the position that you apply for. So that's the one lesson. To the ladies in the room. Appropriately means not provocatively. Okay? Maybe in the past, I don't know, before much discrimination, legislation and all in the country, maybe ladies thought, well, okay, the more provocative I dress, the better chance I've got of getting this low cuts, whatever. You know what happens when you do that? You're walking and a lady's going to interview you. In all probability. Good luck to you. But don't do that. Just dress modestly, appropriately to the type of position that you're applying for. Okay. Don't overdo perfume and cologne. Serious. Often you get into this closed environment, somebody leaves the room and you're like, oh, so just don't try too hard. I think that's the thing. Be yourself in the interview. You can't be somebody you're not. Don't try and act like you're somebody. Don't feel like you have to have the answer to every question perfectly or whatever. Just be yourself in the interview. And sometimes you're nervous, I understand that. But when I interview people, I really try and give them the best chance to be themselves. Some people have this style of bullying people almost in an interview to challenge them and see what. I think you don't really get the real person. But to me, that's not ideal. I've got a whole lot of stuff on body language that we would have done. What is the time now? We've got 12. So we've got 14 more minutes, yeah. But body language is important. Just be aware of your body language in an interview. So, for example, any form of distraction. And that means, say, if I'm being interviewed by this camera, my focus is on this camera. This person interviewing me is the most important. Not the stuff going on in the room around me, not the stuff out the window, definitely not your cell phone. Don't even take it into the room with you. Because if it vibrates in your pocket, maybe you've done well to put it on vibrate, but it's still going to distract you. Just leave it out of the room when you go for your interview. No distraction. Eye contact. And I know there's a little bit of a cultural thing around that, and some cultures it's almost wrong to make eye contact, but in the marketplace, I want to say there is a working culture that people want to know, like almost looking down at the ground, looking away from the person, turning your body away from them is not going to be a good impression. You want to face the person, you want to open up yourself to engage with them. So your body language is the way you sit, your legs face them, you don't sort of turn your legs away, you don't give a cold shoulder, you engage with them from a body language point of view, because so much gets read into it. And it has been said, all the psychology is the recruiter, and that's from my own experience as well. You generally make up your mind in the first 5 minutes, even less, I think. Whether you like this person or whether you think they're a good match or whether you're going to pursue possibly employing them or not. That impression is made almost from the handshake and the initial contact that happens with you and the person. And of course, we're going to do a lot of interviews online and Zoom and all the rest, and people have got jobs because of COVID. And before nobody ever got a job unless they'd been in the company itself, but that's changing. So you've got another way. I haven't even got it in the notes, but be prepared to do good online interviews as well, where you can get your point across, you can communicate well with the camera and engage. For all of us, we weren't used to preaching to cameras until COVID happened. So that's everything around preparing yourself. Okay. What I want to say as well is getting a job. Like I said, when you don't have a job and you're not studying and you're looking for work, your job is to look for work. So I really think we're going to set up a Joy Job Club here as well for guys who are unemployed in the season. We can help them motivate the guys to find some kind of work. But don't be too prideful to take a starting position. Even if you have a degree, and it's maybe not in your field, start working. It's far easier. God works with momentum. It's far easier to get another job when you have a job. I'm telling you, you get out of a job, you get unemployed, and maybe it's not your fault, you get retrenched, maybe you get fired unfairly or fairly, you messed up, and just learn your lesson and get on with it. But the reality is people, I've seen many guys, and I'm talking about guys my age and who I've walked with, who've got families to support, and they lose a medium to senior level job and they will not accept a lower level job. It gets offered and they don't. They'll rather have nothing. It's a stupid decision. Swallow your pride, start at whatever level you need to start. And for the young guys too, I've seen youngsters come to headhunters and say, I want a starting salary of 25 to 30,000 rand a month. You are crazy. Maybe a mechatronic engineer or a CA who's passed their board exam, maybe they start at that level. There's very few qualifications. 99% of qualifications, you can work on half of that or less. And sometimes you've just got to be faithful. You've heard the principle over and over today. Faithful with a little, and then you're able to be entrusted with more. But having a job helps you get the next job, even if it's part-time, even if it's out of your field. Okay, please remember that. Okay, some questions. There are some surefire questions you can get in interviews. For example, what are your strengths? Think about it. You don't have to answer me now, but start preparing. Look at the camera, look at the mirror at home. Video yourself if you want to, whatever, but start preparing yourself. What are your top 2 or 3 strengths? What do you think you have to offer? Why should we employ you? You're going to get asked that question. I'm telling you now. In 90% of interviews. What are some of your weaknesses? Or what is your one weakness? And weakness can be an opportunity for improvement, for growth, for development. It's not a negative thing. But think of how you'll package that thing. Because if you're clever, not clever, but if you're honest, you can package a weakness in a way that it's not going to disqualify you. But I've had some people give me weaknesses that I say, can we just like reword that, maybe? I'll put it down, because I don't know if I want to tell the client like that. You know? But if you're not aware of your blind spots, it is a weakness. And I'll tell you now, when people say to me, I have no weaknesses, or I can't think of a weakness, I cross them off. If you're not self-aware, you think you know it all. So that comes across as arrogant as well. So think through that. As I said, why should we employ you? What do you have to offer us that somebody else maybe doesn't have? So without being arrogant, just think of and ask people, get some counsel, or prepare. Do mock interviews with each other. Yeah? That's what today is about as well, is to learn some of those skills. And then the last one I want to say on the interview is allow the interviewer to interview you. The most irritating thing for me is when I get a person who comes in and they feel like they're driving the interview and they end up asking me more questions than I ask them. Big cross, control issues or whatever it is, or kind of over-impress. If you get asked a question, answer it. And maybe give a 40-minute answer with 10 examples, or give the answer the question that's been asked to you. Don't go and add a whole lot more. I've got some practical listening skills, but again, show the people or the person interviewing you that you're interested in them. Ask questions to get clarity. I won't butt in, obviously, but just have a level of engagement with them that is positive. Okay. And as I said, block out distractions. I employ if there's a for a certain qualification, you generally have to honor it. But let's say you have 50 people who have that qualification. How do you then differentiate and go to the next? And let's say it's an entry-level position like you guys, and there's not a whole lot of experience required. Attitude is the thing that's going to get you the job or not. And people pick that up in that interview very quickly. Attitude is positivity, energy, passion, just something about attitude. Attitude determines your success or not in the marketplace. In fact, I want to say that you can have your qualification, you can have your trade, you can have all the experience in the world. The thing that's been proven, the thing that determines your success in the marketplace more than anything else, what do you think it is? And I've already told you it's not the qualification. The highest qualification is the most successful, or the most experienced is the most successful. Take those two obvious things out of the factor. And attitude is right in the mix. What do you think determines success in the marketplace? 87% of your success, let's say, is determined by this thing. Because in your typical day, you communicate for 86 or 87% of the time. Your ability to communicate with people and to connect with people is what makes you successful in your workplace. Think about it for a minute. If you're a teacher, if you're a lawyer, if you're a pastor, if you're an IT nerd, like no, really. It was always thought that scientific guys and engineers and IT guys didn't have to engage with people. Wrong. You can get nothing right in the workplace unless you can work in a team and you can connect with people and you can communicate effectively. That is the determining factor. 86% of your success in life, I want to say, not just in work, is your ability to connect with people and build relationships. And the way that you maintain relationships in the marketplace. So you can say, well, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, whatever. That's not really relevant. Everybody needs to, for success in life, have an ability to communication is speaking and listening, writing, texting. It's just think of your day, how much communicating you do, and you'll see what I'm saying is right. Okay, we're almost done. We have 6 minutes left. So that was the second part in the interview. Now the last one is you got the job. Hallelujah. Now you're in the job, what do you do?
Start right away or ask them when should I start?
Absolutely. I think availability is a big thing. Often in jobs nowadays as well, guys who are available immediately or can negotiate shorter notice periods do give benefit to those who have to serve long notice periods, but you have to honour your contract anyway. But I think the important thing is, I've gone through that. I've said put your money where your mouth is. Because often in an interview, you make lots of promises. I've seen you speak yourself up to the point that I think that's it's good, and you want to sell yourself. People talk about selling yourself, but you can't sell something you can't deliver. So if you've said, well, I'm going to be prepared to be flexible, and I'm going to work longer hours if I have to, if something goes wrong, and I'm going to study, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to help this guy or whatever, then you need to do it. And I talk, the scripture says, you go the extra mile. That's how we as employees need to be. In biblical times, Christian slaves, and I'm sorry to say that the scriptures in Ephesians speak about slaves and masters. That's the equivalent to employers and employees in the world that we live in today. But it said that the price that Christian slaves were bought for or sold for in those times was the highest. So Christian slaves got the highest, what do you call it, bartering, or when you were put on auction. Because they were the most valuable, because they had the best attitude, because they were Jesus' followers, because they wanted it. They understood that work was not just to rock up and take home some money. Not that slaves got money, they just got food or whatever. But for us, it's not about just rocking up and collecting the paycheck. As I think also said as well, yes, we must evangelize, yes, we must be witnesses, yes, we must be whatever. But the greatest form of witnessing is to be an effective, efficient, best employee that you can be. Only when people see that, they say, hey, I can trust this guy, I can actually speak to this guy, this girl, and they can help me in this. But when they see you as a lazy employee who comes late or just watches the clock and in and out and does the bare minimum, that's not a good witness as a Christian. So on the job is go the extra mile, do that which you need to do, and be reliable, be trustworthy, be full of energy, and it will go well with you. That is my experience. Any questions for our last 3 minutes?
You have more than 3 minutes. Tim's only started speaking.
Well, we're not going to be at past 6. So.
I was just wondering about the CV. You said it's the layout, the flow and everything like this, but besides that, when you look at the CV, what would turn you away from the CV?
Okay, so, as I said, as soon as there's gaps or holes or things that I can't understand, or I need to try too hard to try and understand, I just put the CV aside, and it's all electronic through boxes and all the different search engines, they come together, and we have ways to go through that. So generally we talk about shortlisting, so we would scan through for the non-negotiable. And in this instance, because let's say in a headhunting capacity, you're a consultant, you're in the middle employing for an employer, so you can't change that spec. So if they say this experience and this qualification is non-negotiable, or this employment equity profile, which is the reality in terms of that, then we would exclude everybody else through a search or whatever, and a refining of the CVs. But if you meet all the basic requirements, then it comes down to, there's something of a gut feel, I think. Obviously, again, particular experience in particular industries or whatever is helpful, so somebody will get the foot ahead based on that. But what puts me off is, I mean, sometimes you guys load up CVs, they don't even load the CV up properly. It's not there, or it's terribly, the quality of it is scanned so poorly or whatever that you struggle, or sometimes just the file is far too big as well, so it takes forever to download, whereas others. So you need to have your supporting documents in a separate, generally in a separate document. So I would have the CV and the covering letter in one, and then your supporting documents. And also, when you go through, and your CV changes, so when you're just starting in your career, talk about your school career a bit, and maybe leadership roles, or what you achieved there or whatever. But when you're 35 and 40, maybe you need to go back and clean your CV up and take all of the school stuff off and put more work around and stuff. But it's about speaking about your character and your leadership and whatever. So I think that's important. And what we prefer is that the most recent experience you have is at the top, and then you work down the other way. I think that's important. Don't, like I said, be very clear. When you put qualifications in or short courses or anything you've done, if it's online courses, put the institution you did it through, put the date that you completed it at, everything. As soon as information is missing, it's just leave that CV. If the person hasn't had enough ability to pay attention to detail in applying, how are they going to be on the job? So I think that's important. So before you press the send button, have a good read through. Don't have a general the motivation letter is not the most important to me, but if you, for example, are applying for a sound engineer job, but you also applied for a street light engineer job somewhere else, and now you're applying for the sound engineer, but you forgot to change the fact that you're motivated for that job. I'm not interested. How important is this job to you? Because it's just like one size fits all. People make those simple errors all the time, and it just puts me off as a recruiter. The interesting thing I found in the move from Storehouse to Joy, we've been here 7 months now. I found old files. So I worked at a company called Aberdeen Cables for 8 years in HR, and then at a wheel manufacturer called Borbit for 10 years. And then once I went into ministry, God said, don't lose touch with the business world. So I've been headhunting part-time for the last 8-9 years. And, but I developed a recruitment skills training course in 1997 at Aberdeen Cables. I'd forgotten about this. Still on the old slides. You know, you had to burn it. You had to burn it onto transparency, and then you'd put it on a machine and it would beam it up, Scotty. So what I'm saying, I've been doing this for a long time, and it's actually an enjoyable thing to be on this side. It's stressful for you maybe on that side, but I want to say, gain experience. We were speaking earlier how. So you get the qualification, and every job you apply for says you need 2 to 3 to 5 years experience. How do you get the experience if you, it's one of those conundrums, but what I think you need to do is to do anything to gain any experience, even if it's not exactly that experience, that you can put something on that shows you have a work ethic. Studying part-time and doing short courses, and there's short academy, I'm not promoting anybody, but, and they not take that name out of it, but any form of study that's going to further you in the field that you're going for, even if you've just started or you've just registered, just make sure you've said, registered now, busy. It's a good indication. It tells me this person is serious about going somewhere in their career. They're investing in themselves. So even if you've got a formal qualification, keep trying to keep studying and improving yourself. It doesn't always have to be things that cost you a whole lot of money. There's a lot of stuff that's even free online or whatever. Reading in your field or whatever, that's important. Put stuff like that in your CV so guys can see this person finished what they started, they got their base qualification, they did well in matric, the door, that's just a door opener for you. You get your foot in that door for the interview. Then it's a matter of, can I connect with this interviewer? Because if they want to work with me one day, they've got to say, well, I think I want to spend time with this youngster. They'll fit into our team. And often recruitment is about fit. Sometimes, and ask God to protect you. Sometimes you might get put into an environment that you were never meant to be, and you'll struggle to flourish there. So rather, you know, as much as I'm saying, take what there is to get experience, be careful you don't do something that damages you. And there is times you've got to do things, I think, when you're young to realize, okay, this is right, I'm not meant for this, but now I know, okay, I've sorted that, I don't need to. And many of us, I'm sure, have been waiters and waitresses or whatever as we've come through school and varsity and whatever, do that to gain experience. It's like sometimes the most humbling thing you can do, the way you get treated by people. But it's good to, I mean, we worked with some of the worst bosses in the world, and now everybody else was easy to work for after what we've been through at that point.
Yes, but the thing is, like, usually like, during the interviews, right, most students like to get insights before like that. And like, it's okay, like, if like, ask somebody like, to do the interview with you, or like, you get, like, let's say like your father's like a manager, right? And you ask him like, can I like, pretend like you am I gonna be my boss, right? And then just go to him and then ask him, like, give him questions, and then ask him to also add a few questions so that to see like if I'm prepared, and then ask him like, to check, like, or ask him a professional to like to check through the CV, or like let's say that whenever like you get the job, right, but then you need to sign a contract. But then don't you need like a lawyer to like check through the contract first before signing it, because like most contracts might have some bad things in them.
We've got a few questions there. Let's start on the first one. Get somebody to help you prepare for the interview? Yes. Somebody who you trust. Being part of, let's say you are studying in a professional field. There's often like bodies that you can join of people, social workers have a society or organization, teachers do, legal people do, whatever. Join them, even as a youngster. There's different levels, but this thing of mentorship that Adrian spoke about, it's big. Mentorship, discipleship, they're twins. They go together, spiritual and work-related. You need to have somebody who has been in the field ahead of you to help you and mentor you. They'll often help you prepare well for the interview. But the other thing I didn't say was in my notes is prepare well for the interview in terms of the organization you're going into. Don't go in cold. You must research about that company or that school or that organization or that NPO very well. That you can actually tell them something about the organization. They're going to go, wow, this person's like really interested in working for us. Creates a great impression. You can't go in cold. The job spec itself, you must know exactly, ask the recruiter or the company if it's not in the advert, exactly what are they looking for, what are the requirements, so you know, I need these, and these, but this one I don't have, but I want to be honest about it and I'm going to respond like this. So you have to be very well prepared, and getting somebody to help you prepare like that is a good idea. If you then get to the point of the offer being given to you, this happened with my daughter last week, we're talking real fresh stuff, she started on Wednesday. You often will initially get a verbal offer or a one-page called an offer of employment, which doesn't have all the details. There has to be a degree of trust to say, okay, I'm going to accept the offer on these terms that I see in the basics, which is just generally the salary and the working hours or whatever. And once that's signed, on your first day or whatever, or in between, in your notice period, if there is, then the full contract is offered, which is often 6 pages, 8 pages, 10 pages. And it's good to take that to somebody who's got experience in human resources or legal issues, or a trusted family member or whatever, because somebody's got to witness it with you. You're then faced with a bit of an issue as well, that if you pick up something that you feel clashes with your values radically, like I said earlier, then you might need to decline or step away from it. But most of the time, you're not in a very strong bargaining position to tell the company, no, you need to change your rules for me to fit in. You know what I'm saying? It's the same as a church. If I'm leading and I feel this is where God's taking us or whatever, and you're part of the church and you don't feel that suits you, I don't think I'm going to change because you don't want to get on the bus. Yeah? I'll listen, but at the end of the day, there's something of submitting to where that organization is going and what, because they have standard terms and conditions. So if they change it for you more favorably, somebody else is, you know, then it's unfair in a way. But go through the contract. If there's illegal things, and sometimes guys take chances on things like probation periods. What I don't like is employers make an advert for a job, they want a full-time person for this, then they find somebody who's maybe unemployed, and they say, well, okay, I want to offer them a 3-month contract. Not a probation period, a 3-month limited duration contract, I'm going to check if they're good enough for them. And then somewhere along the line they change their mind, or the guy does something they don't like, no, sorry, you must go after 3 months. Terrible. Don't want to work with employers like that. No integrity. You must take somebody with good faith, with a probation period, that the person's got to work well for 3-4 months and prove themselves, and then that gets made permanent. Nothing wrong, that's a legal clause. But if you ever need advice on contractual stuff or whatever, you know where I am, and we'd love to help you youngsters. I'm just keen to see you get flying in your career one day. And I know you've still got a few years to go, many of you at school, but it's good that you've pitched up here. You think about it. It's not too early to get on things like LinkedIn. As soon as, particularly if you're studying a tertiary qualification or doing a trade or whatever, get on LinkedIn, because networking and getting to know people is more important. That's the way you're going to get your job. Sometimes you'll even get a job without the interview, because people have seen the interview with your hands. They've seen your heart and they've seen your hands, and they say, I want this person. Helpful. Let's pray. And we're going to chase Mr. Reedy out there. I think the eagle is flying on our joke evening, but let's see. Father, we thank